There are a number of issues you could point to, but the main one and the most important one is, of course, Xi taking what was, in essence, a year-by-year crisis group and trying to extend its vision. I mean, there are two things. Just prior to G20, he and the U.S. signed the Paris Climate Accord. This is a very, very important signal to the rest of the world that the two largest pollution emitters were going to lead by example. Then going into the actual things, he then started talking about a much longer time frame. And by this, I mean he started referencing plans in 2030. Now, this had been pretty much unheard of prior to this. He was also very blunt. He said, look, this is not a talk shop. This is something where we have to do something. The world is in economic crisis, and it is not able to deal with that in the way that is traditionally done with the kind of monopolar US-led post-World War II institutions and thinking. And by that I mean the IMF, the World Bank, the G7, Bretton Woods. All of these things have not been able to answer the question, especially since 2008. The world needs a forum which is small enough so that it is able to actually get things done, but large enough so that it's inclusive. And I think this is one of the main messages that Xi was trying to push, that he's creating an entity that will not dictate rules and conditions, but more it will be a group that will go by consensus, that the participants will sit down and agree to agree, or if they cannot agree, they will put it aside. And I think this is very, very important cultural perspective change in the way that China is looking at the world today as opposed to the way it was maybe 5 years ago. This is not imposing. The G20 doesn't say this is the rule, everybody obeys it. They don't say if 50% of the people here agree, then it's a rule. There's nothing like that. It is already a consensus group. Right? They only go forward if they go forward together. If somebody doesn't want to be part of the group, they simply out. But they're not pushed out because they don't want to be part of some part of it. For instance, India. India is objecting to a number of the issues on the anti-corruption side because they say, well, we don't like this part, we don't like that part. That's fine. It's not going to exclude them. And this is very different from the G7, where Russia was excluded because of the political differences over the Ukraine. So this is a very different approach to how things are going to go forward in the future. And I think it's incumbent on people to reflect that it's almost as much about culture as it is about this new kind of grouping. Well, I think the most important one, and we're going to see more about this as the Belt and Road Initiative continues to roll out, and that is this emphasis on real economy, not speculative economy. And what I mean by that is, since 2008, there's been an unprecedented move to use fiscal and monetary policy to try to stimulate the world economy. But 8 years later, is it working? I would have to say no. If you look at all the advanced economies, although the US is doing marginally better, it's still not clear what the basis of the economy is going to be in the future. So I think what China is saying is you just can't inject money and hope somehow the market self-corrects in some way. So what he said is, look, we have to have a plan, and the plan is real economy. We need to link up all of these countries that have been bypassed, that have underutilized capacity, who have employment dividends that are available. We need to put in the infrastructure to connect them to markets. And then we need to help them not only put in the infrastructure for transportation, but also development. And that means investing and helping them develop manufacturing on their own accord. Why is this important? These people, once they have jobs that pay wages, will now become part of the consumer world economy. And this will boost not only China, but the rest of the world, because these drivers of demand are needed. And you can't just rely on general population growth. And I think this is a very important additional idea that China is going.